So thank you everyone for being here. It's an honor, actually. I've been following Wanderlust for so many years, and it's so thrilling to finally be here. It's actually my first time to Aspen, and I'm here with my husband and my kids, and we did the 4th of July parade in Aspen yesterday, and the fireworks and whitewater rafting, horseback riding. So what an incredible healing place to be, and I got to wander around Wanderlust, and it really lived up to everything I had imagined it to be. It's such a special program and community and lovely people from all over who are here. So thank you all for being here. Honestly, it still always surprises me that anyone ever wants to hear me talk, so it's nice to be here. So despite not really practicing yoga growing up, I grew up in a really interesting background, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with my father, Deepak Chopra. And when we were young, until about 9 or 10 years old, my dad was a really stressed out, miserable doctor who drank a lot, smoked a lot. Our family was not a very happy place. And when my dad kind of reached that probably midlife crisis, he discovered meditation. It was transcendental meditation. And he took my mother an hour later to learn. My brother and I learned that same day. I was 9 years old and my brother was 5 years old. So I've literally been meditating basically my whole life. I'm turning 43, so it's been many, many years. And meditation really transformed our family life. And so one of the most common questions I get from other parents is, how do you teach your children mindfulness and meditation? And I can say from my own experience, it was watching my parents. When my parents started meditating, our family became happier. My parents connected more. My dad was around more. We were happier. We spent more time together. And so children learn by example. And so for any parents out there, I would strongly recommend, if you're looking to kind of bring some mindfulness into your family, really we lead by example and teach by example. So that's usually my tip on kids. So we meditated. Actually, it became kind of a nice thing. I used to come home from school and we'd sit with my mom. And she is very much in the background, in the public space, but in our family, she's the anchor for everything. So that became our bonding experience together. And my dad basically used my brother and I as the guinea pigs for all of his random experiments. So whether it was hypnotizing me to try to get over my addiction to chocolate, to going for days without criticizing, condemning, or complaining, there were so many things, to doing the Ouija board, and we had a good friend, Narayan, who was a spirit, and we talked to him about our dead dog. And so we really did everything and tried everything, and it was a lot of fun. And also, obviously, we got exposure to really interesting people as well. One of the things that I often share is that after we would meditate, my father would ask my brother and I to repeat the following phrase, and it goes like this: I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience and set the goals I will achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. And so then my dad would ask us, okay, so what do you ask for? Well, being like young kids, we'd say tickets to the Celtics, a trip to Hawaii, a new Atari game. So we'd ask for all these things. And then my dad would say, okay, well, what about asking for love, compassion, inspiration, connection, purpose? So we grew up from a very young age asking for all of these qualities in our life and asking for them on a daily basis. And so that really is when I talk about intention and intent.com, which is this website I've started. The inspiration really was from a lifetime of asking for what we wanted. And so, what are intents? Intents are the seeds of our deepest desires. They are who we aspire to be as individuals, as members of society, as citizens of global Earth, Mother Earth. And so, if we really get into that practice of asking for intents on a daily basis, they really start to anchor us. And they anchor us both kind of in the grand sense, where my intent is to be a good mother. And what I've loved about my website is when I share that intent and express that intent, I connect with mothers, whether they're in South Africa or Morocco or New Zealand, and we can connect on those deepest desires, develop a sense of community and share ideas and basically celebrate when we do things well and support each other when we have different challenges. But intents really are kind of those seeds of our deepest desires. And intents also work just to get through the day. I've had days where I've known that I'm going to be really stressed out between the kids and work and et cetera. So in the morning, I will set the intent to remain anchored and silent in the midst of chaos. And what happens is once you set that intent throughout the day, as things start to get frenetic, I can come back to that intent. It's like for those of you who meditate, coming back to a mantra or a sutra or that seed of desire, and that really helps to anchor you for the rest of the day. So I grew up with intention. She mentioned my book, 100 Promises to My Baby, and what happened is when I became pregnant, I actually realized that I had never been on any self-development journey. I had grown up around all this, but I really was not interested in it. But becoming a mom, suddenly I was like, okay, well, who am I? Where do I come from? What do I want? How can I serve my children? And so, again, that's when intention came back in my life in the form of setting promises to my baby and setting these intents of how we can grow together in this journey of life and parenthood. And so my kids now are 12 and 10. I have 2 girls, Tara and Leela, and they're wonderful. We're going horseback riding later today, and they're enjoying Aspen as well. So I grew up, I've kind of gone through phases of tapping into meditation and intention and then kind of wavering off. I actually think I had a very normal childhood. People always ask me what was it like growing up as Deepak Chopra's daughter, and to be honest, my dad was my dad, and we never thought of him any differently. I went to a normal college, and then actually my first job was launching the Heal the World Foundation for Michael Jackson at the Super Bowl when he performed there. And then I had this amazing opportunity to go to India as the first person to launch MTV in India. So most people would not imagine me launching MTV in a foreign market. And that was actually an amazing experience. For any kid, I was 23 years old, it was like the dream job. I got to just hang out with musicians and go to concerts and party. I actually met my husband at the first ever rave in New Delhi. So, again, not what people would think Chopra. He doesn't do yoga. He was really not into meditation. He's like an alpha male venture capitalist guy. And so, again, we've had, quite honestly, a pretty normal life and background. But there was something that happened to me when I was in India with MTV that really created a shift for me. I'd been there working a few months, and the team had been growing. I was staying in Bombay in the Taj Hotel, if any of you have been to Bombay. And we had just sold our first ever major sponsorship for MTV, and it was a big deal. And so we were driving back from our meeting, back to our 5-star hotel in our very fancy air-conditioned car, driving through the streets of Bombay. And I don't know if anyone here has been to Bombay, but they're crowded. We were actually driving through a slum. At the time, the roads did not go over the slums like they do now. Now, India's manufactured kind of ways to avoid some of these places in certain areas. But we were going through a slum, and traffic in Bombay is always bad, but this particular time, we just were at a standstill. We just wouldn't move. So we were busy in our car, kind of happily discussing our deal that we had just closed. And we were inching along, and we're kind of wondering, why aren't we moving? And so as we kind of move forward, we see in the distance a group of children. And these are slum kids, in tattered clothing. Most are shoeless. You can sense the malnutrition by their stomachs and their bodies. And as we kind of get closer, we see that they're all huddled around looking at a roadside stall. So we get closer, And in the roadside stall, there's a little television. And on the television, there are American kids grinding to hip hop music on a beach in Santa Monica, where I live now. And there is the MTV logo right there. And everyone in my car started to cheer. They said, "Oh my God, here we are in the middle of India, and look at our success. We just sold our sponsorship, and we really have reached every corner of the planet." And while everyone else cheered, my heart stopped. And I thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? And it was really one of those moments where I realized, for me, my path is a little bit different. This isn't my path. It's been an amazing journey so far. But moving forward, I grew up with this sense that we all have a unique purpose. How can we serve? And it was my time to kind of really contemplate and think about that. And so, I transitioned out, and I've kind of been involved in the last few years, or many years now, of exploring different ways where we can use media, because I really believe in the power of media, to help connect people and transform each other's lives. And it's been kind of a roller coaster. The world has changed so fast, so quickly. But I do believe that we can use media to connect on a really deep level, to inspire each other and to support each other. So I do welcome you all to come to intent.com, which has been a recent endeavor of mine in the last few years, and it's really growing. We're actually developing an iPhone app now as well. So it's been a fun journey, and I have a great team that supports it. But that MTV experience really kind of made me think about, what does it mean to serve and to, on a daily basis, live with purpose? So life continues. I got crazy. I had 2 kids. And it was about 2 years ago, actually, when I was talking to exactly a group like this. And I was leading the group through a meditation. And in the meditation, asking some questions. And I was standing on stage like this and thinking, I am such a hypocrite. I'm like teaching people about meditation and balance and purpose, and yet in my own life, as a crazy mom who has a company that's going, and shuttling my kids around in a busy schedule, and I feel like I've overscheduled my kids and I've overscheduled myself, and I drink coffee and eat sugar to get through the day, and I was standing here thinking, my God, I am not living with intent. Or I don't even know what that is anymore. And so about 2 years ago, I decided to really kind of commit my words to action. And I decided to write a book, and that's what I've been working on now. It's be called Living with Intent. And it really was a journey where I kind of stepped back and thought about, who am I and what do I want? And I came up with this acronym. In the process, I got to tap into my dad, which is great. But I also went and spoke to Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, Andrew Weil, Ariel Ford, Debbie Ford's sister. And so I got to tap into all these amazing teachers and talk about what it meant for them to live with intention, as well as tips and tools that could help along the way. So I wanted to share kind of what I've been exploring as I've been writing this book. I've kind of used the acronym around intent, I-N-T-E-N-T. I stands for incubate, and I really believe that incubate is about meditation. It's about tapping into silence. It's about stillness. It's interesting being around the yoga community, because it always is strange to me that yoga has so much music in it, because for me, I grew up honoring silence. And so I think there are different ways that we do that. But for me, meditation's been a great tool. And that's really the beginning of planting seeds. Intents are like seeds, and we plant them, and then we kind of nourish them and let them grow, but we can only plant them when we're in a fertile ground. And so I think even when I began this journey again, I didn't really know what my intents were anymore. Life had changed quite a bit, and so I needed to take that time to incubate, to tap into silence, and to just honor kind of the uncertainty and the infinite possibilities that were there. So we begin with I, which is incubate. N which is notice. So I noticed that my vocabulary was that I'm busy, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed. So even when I spoke, all of these words represented what was happening emotionally for me. So when we were kids, I mentioned earlier, my dad used to make my brother and I play this game where for like a morning, we wouldn't criticize, condemn, and complain. And then we'd kind of have points and we'd do this game of who won. And my brother, annoying little brother, would just kind of keep doing anything he could to make me like snap at him or complain to my mother. But it was an interesting exercise because you realized how often our dialogue really does affect our emotional well-being. So notice is very important. In notice, I also stress noticing the signs in the universe, because sometimes when we set the intent for something, a person will show up, an opportunity will arise that if we notice it and take advantage of it, it helps us on our journey. So that notice is the second part. T is for trust. Trusting our intuition, trusting ourselves. Actually, in that process of the book, I actually went to go see Amma, the hugging guru, which I'm sure many of you know. And it was interesting because I actually realized when I went to see her, I didn't need to hug her. But it took me that process of really realizing that I need to trust myself, trust my intuition, trust that I'm on the right path. And likewise, that the universe helps take care of the details. So trust is a very big thing. I had a great conversation with Andrew Weil, actually. I thought I'd talk to him about health and nutrition, and we ended up talking all about trust. And he's such a wise soul and shared some great stories. E is for express. So express is very critical because when we say what we want, and it may be posting it on a site, it may be writing it on a piece of paper and burning it, it may be telling a friend, but when we express our intent, we really start the wheels of motion of first accepting it for ourselves, because sometimes we're too scared to even express what we want. But when we take action in expressing it, we start to crystallize that. And that's what I did with my book, 100 Promises to My Baby. Each promise was crystallizing a thought, an emotion, a desire. N is for nurture. And nurture is very important. Our communities are very important. This Wanderlust community is very important. So nurturing is nurturing the relationships in our lives, finding that community of support. Gallup did an interesting study a few years ago, which showed that if you have a happy friend, you're 15% more likely to be happy. But what's more interesting, if you have a friend who has a happy friend, you're still 9% more likely to be happy. And a friend of a friend of a friend, so 3 times removed, I think it's still 6% more likely to be happy. So we've seen in everything from weight loss to taking a yoga class to whatever it may be, our community is very important. And nurturing that community really helps bring to life our desires. And then T, the last one, is take action. And so, it's often we need to do all the work, and it's not like a linear path. It's kind of a circular path. We're always kind of rechecking in. But I always want to make clear, we're in such a goal-oriented society. Intentions are not goals. Intents are not about goal setting. Intents really come from the soul. Our goals come from our mind, but intents really come from that deep place inside of us. So that's kind of what I've been working on my book, and that will kind of expand. And I think it's interesting, a year and a half later, where I really took time to be mindful, to meditate regularly, because I hadn't. I've been meditating for 35 years, but I go in and out of it. But meditating regularly, committing to relationships, and really doing that work really, for me, had a great effect. So what I'd like to do, because we're coming to the end of the time, and we'll answer, we can talk and ask questions afterwards. But in the last minute, I'd love to have everyone just put away your notes, take a deep breath, and we're just going to do a 1 or 2 minute meditation. Repeat the words, I am. I am going to ask a few questions. Don't feel the need to answer these questions, just experience the answers. Who am I? Who am I? What do I want? What do I want? How can I serve? How can I serve? And now you can stop repeating the words if you're still repeating them. Keep your eyes closed and just take a few deep breaths. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.